Lieutenant Harper stepped off the military transport, her boots hitting the concrete of the SEAL training base with a firm, confident sound. The morning sun glinted off her uniform, making the sharp lines and polished insignia stand out against the rugged backdrop of the base. Around her, the noise of activity was constant. Vehicles moving, men shouting orders, and the distant sound of training exercises echoing across the grounds. It was a world of discipline, strength, and intensity, a world where only the toughest survived. Harper had trained for years to be here, but she knew that being here meant more than physical strength. It was also a test of character, poise, and mental sharpness. As she walked toward the main building, she could feel the eyes on her. A group of rookies gathered near the entrance, their youthful energy and rough humor filling the air. They were fresh recruits, many just out of basic training, and they had not yet learned the boundaries of respect or the subtleties of authority. Harper noticed them, her expression calm but alert. She knew these young men had heard rumors about her arrival. Some of them probably assumed that because she was a woman, she would be an easy target for jokes, or that she would somehow be less capable than the veteran men around her. The rookies whispered to each other, nudging one another and pointing in her direction, clearly amused by the idea of a female officer joining their ranks. Harper walked with a steady pace, shoulders back, head held high. She did not glance at them directly, nor did she show any reaction to their whispers. Her confidence and calmness were deliberate. She understood that in this environment, showing doubt or hesitation could quickly be seen as weakness, and weakness was something the rookies were eager to spot and exploit. Despite the casual jokes and laughter, Harper's mind was focused. She was here on official duty, but she also wanted to observe. Every step she took allowed her to take in the environment, the way the rookies moved, the way the instructors carried themselves, and the general rhythm of life at a SEAL training base. Harper had trained extensively for this moment, not just in physical exercises, but also in situational awareness, leadership, and maintaining composure under scrutiny. She knew that before she could earn the respect of these rookies, she had to first assess them, understand their attitudes, and show that she belonged, not through words, but through her presence. As she reached the entrance, one of the rookies, a tall young man with a cocky grin, took a step forward. His eyes lingered on her uniform insignia, and he whispered something to his friends, likely a joke about her rank. Harper caught the movement out of the corner of her eye but continued walking without slowing down. The rookie laughed loudly, trying to get a reaction from her, assuming she would respond or falter. But Harper's silence and unwavering pace only added to the tension. The rookie did not realize that silence could be more powerful than words, and that it often made people underestimate the person standing in front of them. Harper's experience had taught her that the first impression was crucial, especially in an environment like this. She didn't need to assert herself immediately. Her presence alone would speak volumes. Her uniform was spotless, her posture perfect, and every movement was controlled. The rookies could sense it. There was something about her that was different, something that made their casual jokes feel awkward and unimportant. It wasn't arrogance. It was competence. And in a place where competence was everything, Harper's confidence was unmistakable. The officers at the base who had known of her arrival had mentioned that Harper had a reputation for excellence. She was not just another officer. She had been part of elite units before, had experience in high-pressure situations, and carried a level of authority that naturally commanded attention. The rookies, however, were unaware of her full history, and that ignorance made them bold, joking without realizing who they were addressing. Harper, on the other hand, observed everything. The stances of the rookies, their laughter, the energy in the air, and knew that this first encounter was as much about observation as it was about arrival. As she approached the main hall, Harper could see the instructors in the distance, moving with precision, checking on drills and maintaining order. Their presence reminded her that respect in this place was earned, not demanded. She took a deep breath, feeling the mix of tension and excitement that always came with stepping into a new environment where her abilities would be tested. Harper was ready, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally, to meet whatever challenges the space would throw at her. For the rookies, Lieutenant Harper was just a figure in uniform, someone to laugh at and test. For Harper, the rookies were the first of many lessons she would teach. Not with words, but with her actions, her poise, and eventually, the reveal of a hidden connection that would completely change the dynamics of the group. In that moment, she walked forward, confident, composed, and completely aware of the silent challenge that had begun the moment she set foot on the base. The atmosphere inside the briefing room was electric with energy, a mix of excitement, nerves, and the usual bravado that came with fresh recruits at a SEAL training base. Lieutenant Harper stepped inside, her posture straight, every movement deliberate. The room fell into a subtle hum of murmurs as the rookies noticed her. Some of them shifted in their seats, whispering to one another, while others tried to appear indifferent, pretending not to notice the new arrival. Harper's eyes scanned the room, taking in the layout, the expressions of the rookies, and the subtle tension that always came when someone new, especially someone of her rank, entered the space. She knew the unspoken rules here. Respect had to be earned, not demanded, and every rookie would test her in their own way. She had seen it countless times before. Small jokes, sarcastic remarks, subtle challenges, all designed to see if the newcomer would crack under pressure. And crack she would not. Harper had spent years honing her ability to remain calm, even in situations designed to provoke her. She understood that a SEAL's strength was not just in physical skill, but in mental fortitude and composure. She moved to the front of the room, acknowledging the instructors with a crisp nod, then turned her attention to the rookies. Her presence alone seemed to create a quiet tension in the room. It didn't take long before the rookies decided to test her. A tall, lanky young man, clearly the ringleader of the group, leaned forward with a smirk. "So, what's your rank, Lieutenant?" he asked, his tone dripping with mockery, as if he expected her to stumble or get flustered. The other rookies chuckled behind him, nudging each other and trying to suppress their laughter. They assumed they were clever, thinking they could unsettle Harper with a simple question. Harper paused, though not out of hesitation. Her calm, measured look met the rookie's gaze without a hint of irritation. She didn't answer immediately, letting the silence linger for a moment longer than they expected. The rookies exchanged uneasy glances. The smirk on the leader's face faltered slightly. They were used to reactions, they were used to jokes being met with laughter or nervousness, but this silence was different. Harper wasn't reacting in the way they anticipated, and that alone made them pause. The joke, meant to undermine her authority, fell flat. Harper could feel the shift in energy, the momentary uncertainty spreading among the rookies. They hadn't expected her to remain so composed, to meet their teasing without a hint of anger or discomfort. It was a subtle but powerful lesson in itself. This was a woman who knew her own worth and did not need to prove it through words. She finally spoke, her voice calm, clear, and commanding, though not harsh. "I am Lieutenant Harper," she said simply. There was no defensiveness, no hesitation, just a statement of fact. And in that room, it was more powerful than any long-winded explanation or display of authority could have been. Her tone carried weight, a quiet strength that told the rookies that she was fully capable, fully aware, and fully in control. Some of the rookies laughed nervously, trying to recover the situation, but the laughter felt hollow. Harper's calmness had subtly turned the power dynamic. They realized, slowly, that they were dealing with someone who had been through far more than they had. Someone who had faced real challenges and emerged stronger. Someone whose experience gave her a quiet but undeniable authority. Harper didn't push the point or lecture them about respect. She didn't need to. Her composure spoke for her. Every slight movement, the way she adjusted her uniform, the measured way she stood, the way her eyes scanned the room, communicated competence and confidence. The rookies were beginning to understand, though they didn't fully realize it yet, that their attempt to undermine her had backfired. As the briefing continued, Harper observed the rookies carefully. Some were still trying to maintain their bravado, but their jokes had grown quieter, their body language more tentative. They were learning, in that moment, a subtle but crucial lesson. Authority is not about making noise, demanding attention, or being the loudest in the room. It is about presence, control, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your abilities and your value. Harper, meanwhile, had her own observations. She noticed the rookies who were attentive, who listened, and who respected the flow of the briefing. She mentally noted the ones who would require more guidance and the ones who had potential to excel if given the right mentorship. This was more than just a test of her authority. It was also a moment to understand the individuals she would be leading, to see their strengths and weaknesses before she pushed them to their limits. By the end of the session, the initial tension had shifted. The rookies were no longer openly mocking her. Their whispers had quieted, their smirks replaced with subtle expressions of curiosity and cautious respect. They didn't fully understand the significance of who Lieutenant Harper was or the experience she carried, but instinctively, they felt the weight of her presence. They sensed that she was someone not to be taken lightly, someone whose skills and experience were formidable, even if they couldn't yet see them fully. The rookie who had asked the question, the one who had tried to joke, sat back in his chair, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. He had thought this would be an easy tease, a moment to get a laugh at someone else's expense, but instead, it had become a lesson in humility. Harper's calm demeanor, her clear voice, and her unwavering presence had done something simple but powerful. It had commanded respect without even raising her voice. By the time the briefing ended, the rookies had learned something important. Lieutenant Harper was not someone to joke about. She carried herself with a strength that demanded attention and a quiet authority that made even the boldest among them pause. And though they didn't yet know the full story, they had experienced the first taste of the impact she would have on their training and on the base itself. The room was buzzing with activity as Lieutenant Harper moved through the SEAL training base. The rookies were still trying to regain their composure after their failed attempt at teasing her, but curiosity was beginning to replace their nervousness. They watched her every move, trying to figure out what made her so different from any officer they had met before. Harper, aware of their gaze but unshaken, continued to move with purpose, her eyes sharp and observant, taking in every detail around her. As the day progressed, Harper participated in various training exercises alongside the rookies. She guided them through drills, demonstrated precise movements, and offered quiet but effective advice. The rookies couldn't help but notice her efficiency and skill, and even those who tried to maintain their bravado were starting to respect her, though they would never admit it aloud. Harper wasn't just another officer. There was something about her that commanded attention naturally, without needing to shout or assert herself forcefully. During a short break between drills, Harper casually adjusted her sleeve. It was a small, almost unconscious movement, but it revealed a glimpse of something that caught a few sharp-eyed rookies off guard. A tattoo on her forearm. The design was intricate, not large, but unmistakable to those who recognized it. It was a symbol of one of the most elite SEAL units in the world, a mark that carried immense respect and authority. Most of the rookies didn't notice it at first. They were still trying to process her calm, commanding presence and her flawless execution during the drills. But for a few who had spent extra time studying military insignia and the history of elite units, the sight of that tattoo made them pause in mid-motion. One of the rookies, a tall, confident young man who had been one of the first to tease her earlier, happened to catch a closer glimpse. He froze mid-step, his mouth slightly open. The symbol was unmistakable. It was exactly the same insignia that marked the unit commanded by the base commander himself, a man who was legendary among SEALs for his skill, leadership, and unshakable reputation. The young rookie's mind raced. He hadn't realized at first how significant this symbol was, or the connection it represented. And now, seeing it on Harper's arm, he understood instantly. She was not just another officer. She was someone who had a direct link to the commander, someone who had proven herself worthy of this elite recognition. Whispers started circulating among the other rookies as they slowly noticed the tattoo. Their initial excitement and mockery from earlier that morning evaporated into uncertainty and awe. The air in the room shifted. The joking tone had vanished, replaced by a mixture of respect, curiosity, and nervous tension. Harper, sensing the change, didn't say a word. She didn't need to. The tattoo itself spoke volumes. In an environment like this, symbols carried meaning. They were proof of experience, achievement, and trust earned under extreme circumstances. And the rookies were beginning to understand that they were witnessing someone extraordinary. Harper continued with her movements, stretching her arms, adjusting her gear, and walking among the group with ease. To any casual observer, it might have seemed like a simple, everyday action. But to those paying attention, her tattoo served as a subtle but powerful reminder of her elite background. It told a story of training, dedication, and missions that few could even imagine. The rookies who had mocked her earlier now found themselves unable to meet her gaze directly. Respect had replaced their laughter. Even the most confident among them felt a flicker of nervousness, realizing they were in the presence of someone who had been part of the highest levels of SEAL operations. Some of the rookies tried to act normal, pretending not to notice the tattoo. They didn't want to draw attention to their surprise or their newfound sense of intimidation. Yet, despite their efforts, the atmosphere had undeniably changed. Harper's quiet strength and the symbolism of her tattoo had created an invisible boundary. They understood instinctively that this was someone whose experience and authority could not be challenged lightly. Their earlier jokes now seemed immature, almost foolish, in comparison to the reality of her presence. For Harper, this was exactly the point. She had come to this base not only to perform her duties but also to set the tone for the rookies, to establish respect without having to demand it. The tattoo was not a tool for intimidation, but a symbol of her history and connection. A subtle way to show that she had earned her place in a world that demanded excellence. She didn't flaunt it. She revealed it casually, naturally, letting the rookies discover the truth on their own. That was far more effective than any verbal assertion of rank could ever be. As the rookies began to piece together the significance, a quiet reverence spread through the room. They realized that Harper had already proven herself in ways they could only dream of. This was someone who had endured the rigorous training, the intense missions, and the extreme tests of skill and courage that defined the elite SEAL units. And now she was among them, not to show off or lecture, but to guide, teach, and lead by example. By the end of the break, the rookies' attitude had transformed completely. The earlier mocking energy was replaced by attentive curiosity. They watched her movements more closely, listened more carefully, and began to understand that Harper's presence wasn't just another routine day at the base. It was a subtle lesson in humility, respect, and the quiet power of earned authority. The tattoo had done its job. It had revealed the truth, shifted the dynamics, and reminded everyone that true skill and experience could not be judged by appearances or gender alone. And for Harper, the moment was just another part of her day. She moved on, continuing with the training, fully aware that the rookies now carried a new awareness, a new respect, and a growing anticipation of what she could teach them and the example she would set. The hidden symbol had done more than mark her past. It had quietly rewritten the way the rookies would see her from that moment forward. The moment the rookies realized the significance of Lieutenant Harper's tattoo, the atmosphere in the training room changed completely. What had started as a light, teasing environment quickly turned into one of silent tension and quiet awe. Harper moved among the recruits, checking their techniques, correcting stances, and giving subtle guidance, all while her tattoo was now partially visible to those who paid close attention. A ripple of realization passed through the room. Some of the rookies froze mid-motion, unable to hide the shock on their faces. One of the young men, the same one who had smirked and asked her rank as a joke, finally understood what he was seeing. His eyes widened, and a cold realization spread through him. The design on Harper's forearm wasn't just a random tattoo or personal decoration. It was a mark of one of the most elite SEAL units, the same unit commanded by the legendary base commander himself. The rookies' earlier bravado evaporated instantly. Their laughter, whispers, and casual nudges disappeared, replaced by silence, uncertainty, and a growing sense of respect. Harper noticed the shift but didn't react outwardly. She was trained to observe, to read people, and to let their own perceptions reveal the truth. She didn't need to announce her experience or her accomplishments. The tattoo did that silently. The rookies were left to confront the reality themselves. Some of them glanced nervously at one another, trying to process how close they had come to mocking someone whose background was far beyond their understanding. Their earlier teasing now felt foolish, almost embarrassing. The young rookie who had challenged her first looked down at his hands, suddenly aware of how immature and impulsive he had been. His friends, too, were adjusting their posture, shifting in their seats, and casting subtle glances at Harper, each one trying to act normal but failing to hide the growing respect in their expressions. The atmosphere was thick with a mixture of awe, curiosity, and unease. Harper's calm composure contrasted sharply with the rookie's internal turmoil. They realized that they were not dealing with just another officer. They were dealing with someone who had faced the toughest training, survived the most extreme conditions, and earned recognition in the most elite circles of the SEALs. A few of the more observant rookies whispered quietly among themselves, sharing what they knew about the symbol. "Is that?" one of them muttered under his breath. "It can't be. She's connected to the commander?" The words barely reached Harper's ears, but the tension in the room told her all she needed to know. She had anticipated this moment. The tattoo was subtle, almost hidden under her sleeve, but when revealed even accidentally, it carried a weight of authority that demanded respect. It wasn't a threat, it wasn't intimidation. It was a quiet confirmation of experience, a silent message that she had earned her place here. The room seemed to hold its breath. Every rookie, no matter how confident they had been just moments before, felt a subtle shift in power. The ringleader of the group, the one who had been so sure of himself, now stared at Harper with an almost reverent curiosity. He realized, perhaps for the first time, that experience and skill could not be judged by appearances. This was a living lesson in humility, one he wouldn't soon forget. Harper's eyes scanned the room, and even though she said nothing, her gaze seemed to reach each of them personally. The rookies felt the weight of her presence, as if she could see not only their actions but also their thoughts and insecurities. Harper continued the training session, correcting stances, demonstrating techniques, and quietly guiding the rookies through the exercises. Every movement she made, every instruction she gave, now carried a new significance. The rookies were watching closely, not because they wanted to challenge her anymore, but because they wanted to learn. The earlier sense of mockery had been replaced with focus and attention. The tattoo, once unnoticed, had shifted the entire energy of the room. Some rookies found themselves glancing back at her forearm repeatedly, almost as if seeking reassurance that they were seeing what they thought they were. Each time they did, the realization sank deeper. This was someone who had proven herself at the highest level, someone who was respected by the base commander, someone whose experience demanded acknowledgement. The lesson was clear and unspoken. Authority comes not from words, not from rank alone, but from proven skill, dedication, and earned respect. Even the instructors and other officers who were present couldn't help but notice the change in the rookie's behavior. The room that had once been filled with casual chatter and teasing was now orderly, attentive, and tense with anticipation. Harper's presence, combined with the subtle but unmistakable symbol on her arm, had transformed the rookie's mindset. They were beginning to understand that leadership and respect were earned, not demanded. By the end of the session, the rookies were silent, thoughtful, and introspective. The tattoo had done more than reveal Harper's past. It had altered the rookies' perception of her and themselves. They realized they had been naive, perhaps even arrogant, in thinking they could challenge her authority with a simple joke. Harper had demonstrated, without a single word of confrontation, that true leadership and recognition were built on experience, skill, and quiet confidence. As they left the training area, the young rookie who had initially made the joke lingered for a moment, staring at Harper with a mix of awe and newfound respect. He had learned, in just a few minutes, a lesson that would stay with him throughout his career. Never underestimate someone based on appearances, and never judge authority without understanding the journey behind it. Harper, unaware of the deep impression she had left, moved forward with her tasks, her calm demeanor unchanged, but the room, and the rookie's perception of her, forever transformed. After the moment of recognition, the rookie's attitude began to change, but it was not immediate. The shift was subtle at first. A quiet hesitation in their movements, a careful tone in their voices, and glances exchanged that carried uncertainty. Lieutenant Harper noticed it, of course. She could feel the energy in the room, the way the once confident, joking rookies were now measuring their actions and words. She didn't need to say anything to assert her authority. The impact of her experience and the silent message of her tattoo was already taking hold. As the training session continued, Harper moved among the rookies, observing each one individually. She corrected stances, guided proper techniques, and gave precise instructions, all with a calm and steady voice. The rookies followed her guidance, not out of fear, but out of a growing respect they didn't yet fully understand. Even the ringleader of the group, who had been bold enough to joke about her rank earlier, now followed her instructions without a hint of defiance. There was no mocking, no whispers behind her back. They were learning what it meant to be led by someone whose skill and composure were unquestionable. The exercises that day were intense. Harper guided the rookies through complex drills that required focus, strength, and teamwork. What made her different, the rookies began to realize, was not just her ability to perform these tasks herself, but her skill in observing the group, identifying mistakes, and helping them correct themselves. Her attention to detail was unmatched. Every correction she gave was precise, every demonstration perfect. The rookies, who had entered the room thinking they could test her with jokes, now found themselves absorbing her instructions with careful attention. A few of the rookies tried to mask their awe by pretending to look elsewhere, but Harper's calm gaze seemed to catch them every time. It was as if she could see right through their attempts at pretense. Her authority was quiet but undeniable. She wasn't shouting, she wasn't demanding obedience. Yet her presence alone ensured that the room operated with order and focus. The rookies began to understand that leadership in this environment was not about dominating others with words or gestures. It was about competence, confidence, and the ability to guide effectively without needing to prove oneself constantly. During a particularly challenging exercise, Harper noticed a rookie struggling with a maneuver. She approached him, kneeled to his level, and demonstrated the correct method in a way that was patient and encouraging. The rookie's eyes widened with realization, and he quickly corrected his stance. The small moment was a turning point for many of the rookies. They began to see Harper not just as an officer or a figure to be respected, but as someone capable of teaching, guiding, and helping them become better themselves. Her authority was now personal. It wasn't just about her rank or her past, it was about what she could do for them here and now. The rookies who had mocked her earlier were the most affected. The initial smugness they had carried into the room was replaced by a quiet determination to learn, to keep up, and to show that they could meet her standards. They still felt the tension from the earlier moment of recognition, but now it transformed into motivation rather than fear. Harper had demonstrated that respect was earned through skill and integrity, not by intimidation or loudness. The lesson had taken root, and the rookies could feel it growing in the way they approached their training. Harper also observed teamwork closely. She noticed when a rookie tried to act independently without coordinating with his partner, and she corrected it, showing how proper collaboration was not only necessary but could make the difference between success and failure in high-pressure situations. The rookies realized that Harper's methods were not arbitrary. Every instruction had a purpose, every correction mattered. They began to see her as someone whose guidance could make them stronger, more efficient, and more capable, both as individuals and as a unit. By midday, the energy in the room had completely shifted. Where there had once been casual chatter and whispered jokes, there was now focus and attentiveness. The rookies who had tried to test her with humor now followed her instructions closely, watched her demonstrations carefully, and even sought her approval in small, subtle ways. Harper's influence was undeniable. She didn't need to assert dominance. Her actions, her competence, and the silent message of her tattoo had already achieved it. Even during breaks, the rookies found themselves watching her quietly. They discussed techniques in hushed tones, trying to figure out how she performed movements so flawlessly and how she seemed to know exactly what each person needed to improve. Harper, ever observant, noticed this, but she didn't intervene. She understood that part of leadership was allowing others to learn through observation, reflection, and self-motivation. The rookies were beginning to internalize her lessons without even realizing it. By the end of the day, the transformation was clear. The rookies no longer saw Harper as a target for jokes or teasing. They saw her as a leader, someone whose skill, experience, and calm authority demanded respect. They understood that the initial moment of recognition, the sight of her tattoo, was only the beginning. True respect was earned in action, through consistency, guidance, and the quiet strength Harper demonstrated every step of the way. The ringleader of the group, who had laughed at her earlier, approached her briefly at the end of training. His tone was hesitant, almost awkward, but genuine. "Ma'am, you're really good at this," he admitted. Harper offered a small, approving nod, not in arrogance, but in recognition of his acknowledgement. In that moment, the rookies fully realized that Harper's authority was real, earned, and undeniable. By the time everyone left for the day, the rookies carried with them a new understanding. Respect was not given lightly, and leadership was not measured by who could shout the loudest. Harper's calm authority, her skill, and her quiet guidance had spoken louder than words ever could, and the rookies would remember this day as the first time they truly understood what it meant to follow someone extraordinary. The training room was quieter than usual that morning. The rookies were still adjusting to Lieutenant Harper's presence, their earlier arrogance replaced by careful attention and subtle curiosity. Every movement she made, every instruction she gave, was followed closely. The impact of her tattoo and her commanding demeanor had shifted the energy in the room, but the full realization of her authority was about to take an even more dramatic turn. Harper was guiding the rookies through a complex tactical exercise, demonstrating techniques that required precision, timing, and clear communication. She moved with calm authority, explaining each step as if she were conducting a well-practiced drill. The rookies, still in awe from previous lessons, followed her guidance meticulously, their focus sharpened. But the tension in the room was about to heighten, because the commander of the base was making his presence known. The door to the training room opened, and in walked the base commander himself, a man whose reputation was legendary among the SEALs. His eyes scanned the room sharply, immediately taking in the posture, the focus, and the demeanor of everyone present. When they reached Harper, his gaze lingered, and for the rookies who were paying attention, it was clear that something significant had just happened. The commander's eyes fell on Harper's forearm, catching sight of the tattoo that had already made the rookies pause. The room seemed to hold its breath as the commander walked closer. There was a subtle nod exchanged between him and Harper, almost imperceptible to anyone not looking closely, but to the rookies it was electrifying. The nod was not casual. It was a silent acknowledgement of respect, a recognition of experience, skill, and authority. Harper didn't need to speak. The moment communicated everything. The tattoo, once hidden, now carried a weight that no words could convey. The rookies were stunned. Some of them whispered under their breath, barely able to contain their surprise. They had already respected Harper for her calm demeanor and her skill, but now they understood that her authority was validated by the commander himself. This was someone whose approval meant more than any rank or insignia could. The realization hit them like a wave. They were in the presence of not just a skilled officer, but someone recognized by the very top of their unit. The commander didn't speak at length. He simply observed Harper for a moment, noting the way she moved, the way she instructed, and the way the rookies responded to her guidance. Then, with a small but deliberate gesture, he signaled his approval. It was brief, but its meaning was profound. To the rookies, it was as if the room had been transformed by a silent force. The person they had once joked about was not only a capable leader but someone who had earned recognition from the highest authority in the base. Harper continued with the exercise as if nothing had changed, her calm demeanor unshaken. But the rookies were now hyper-aware of the significance of the moment. Every instruction she gave carried extra weight. Every correction was met with focused attention. They understood that she was someone who not only knew the tactics but had earned the trust and respect of the commander, something few could claim. It was a silent but powerful lesson in the nature of authority and earned respect. The ringleader of the rookies, who had once tried to mock Harper, was now visibly shaken. His earlier confidence had vanished completely. He and the others exchanged nervous glances, realizing that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Harper's composure, skill, and connection to the commander had completely altered their perception. What had begun as a playful attempt to undermine her was now a lesson in humility, respect, and the power of earned authority. Even the rookies who were less attentive could sense the shift. The room had changed, and they instinctively understood that Harper was not someone to challenge lightly. The commander's subtle acknowledgement had confirmed what the rookies were beginning to understand on their own. Harper's presence, her skill, and her experience commanded attention, respect, and trust. They had been tested in more ways than one, and the outcome was clear. They were no longer in a position to joke or undermine her. Harper herself remained focused on the task at hand. She guided the rookies through the remaining exercises with precision, demonstrating each maneuver and providing corrections where needed. But now, her authority had an added dimension. The rookies were attentive not just because of her skill but because they now understood that the commander himself recognized her expertise. The respect they showed was different. It was deeper, more profound, and rooted in an understanding of hierarchy, experience, and earned recognition. By the end of the exercise, the atmosphere in the room had shifted completely. The rookies were quieter, more focused, and more attentive. Their earlier bravado and casual teasing had vanished entirely. The commander, satisfied with the session, left quietly, his approval lingering in the room like an unspoken command. The rookies could still feel it. They knew that Harper's authority was real, validated at the highest level, and that their actions going forward would have to reflect that understanding. The impact of that brief interaction with the commander could not be overstated. It had reinforced Harper's credibility in a way nothing else could. The rookies now realized that their earlier assumptions and attempts at humor had been misguided. Harper wasn't just capable. She was extraordinary, recognized, and trusted by the very person who led the unit. Every glance, every movement, and every instruction from her now carried the weight of that recognition. The day ended with the rookies silently reflecting on what they had witnessed. They had learned, in a matter of minutes, a lesson far more valuable than any physical drill. Leadership, respect, and authority were earned through skill, composure, and recognition from those who had proven themselves at the highest levels. Harper had demonstrated all of these qualities effortlessly, leaving a lasting impression on the rookies that would shape the way they approached their training and their understanding of true leadership for the days to come. The training grounds were alive with activity, the air filled with shouts, commands, and the rhythmic sounds of boots hitting the ground. Lieutenant Harper moved among the rookies with a quiet confidence, demonstrating drills, correcting mistakes, and guiding them through exercises that tested both their physical strength and mental focus. But this session was different from the earlier ones. The rookies had already begun to understand the authority and experience Harper carried, and now it was time for them to witness her true capability in action. Harper watched carefully as the rookies attempted a complex tactical maneuver, one that required precise timing, coordination, and trust in their teammates. Many of them struggled, fumbling through the steps and creating chaos in the ranks. She didn't panic, didn't raise her voice, but instead moved with swift efficiency. She demonstrated each step flawlessly, breaking down the sequence in a way that made it easier to understand. Her instructions were clear, concise, and firm, yet encouraging. The rookies were mesmerized. This was not just a demonstration of skill. It was a display of mastery, confidence, and leadership all rolled into one. One rookie, the same one who had attempted to mock her earlier, found himself struggling more than the others. He stumbled, miscommunicated with his partner, and almost caused a mistake in the drill. Harper approached him calmly, kneeling slightly to meet his level without ever breaking her composed demeanor. She corrected his stance with gentle precision, explained the timing, and then had him repeat the maneuver. With her guidance, he executed it perfectly. The transformation in his confidence was immediate. The other rookies noticed, and a subtle shift spread through the group. They were beginning to see Harper not just as an officer with rank, but as someone whose knowledge and skill could elevate them, make them better, and teach them lessons they couldn't have learned elsewhere. Harper's ability to teach through action rather than words was remarkable. She didn't need to lecture or demand obedience. She led by example. Every movement she made was precise, every decision deliberate. The rookies watched her carefully, absorbing not only the techniques she demonstrated, but also her calm, controlled manner in high-pressure situations. Even the rookies who had initially mocked her were paying full attention now, their earlier confidence replaced by genuine focus and admiration. As the exercises grew more intense, Harper pushed the rookies to their limits. She created scenarios that tested their endurance, their teamwork, and their ability to stay composed under stress. Some of the rookies began to falter, exhausted and frustrated. Harper's presence, however, remained a steadying force. She moved among them, offering guidance, correcting mistakes, and demonstrating the correct approach with effortless skill. The rookies could feel her energy, her experience, and her quiet authority driving them forward. They realized that Harper's leadership was not just about giving orders. It was about inspiring them to perform beyond what they thought possible. During one particularly difficult exercise, the rookies had to navigate an obstacle course while maintaining communication and precision. Many of them struggled to keep up, but Harper moved fluidly, showing exactly how to approach each challenge. Her instructions were precise, but she allowed room for the rookies to learn through experience. When mistakes happened, she corrected them calmly, demonstrating the correct method and giving them the confidence to try again. The rookies began to understand a fundamental lesson. True leadership was not about perfection, but about guidance, support, and building trust through action. By the end of the session, it was clear that Harper had earned not just respect, but admiration. The rookies who had once laughed at her jokes or tried to undermine her were now following her example. They moved with focus, listened intently, and attempted the exercises with renewed determination. Harper's influence had transformed their mindset. They understood, more than ever, that competence, calmness, and experience mattered far more than loud words or bravado. The most remarkable change, however, was in the rookies themselves. They had gone from mocking a female officer as a joke to respecting her as a leader and teacher. Harper's combination of skill, patience, and quiet authority had shown them the power of earned respect. They began to see her as a role model, someone whose actions spoke louder than any words, someone whose expertise demanded attention and adherence. The lesson was profound. Leadership was not given. It was demonstrated and proven through competence, guidance, and the ability to inspire others. Even the instructors watching from the sidelines could see the transformation. Harper's approach was not just effective, it was exceptional. She had taken a group of inexperienced rookies, some of whom had doubted her abilities, and elevated their performance simply by leading through example. Her presence, her calm authority, and her unwavering skill created an environment where respect was natural, where learning was accelerated, and where every rookie understood the value of composure under pressure. As the day ended, the rookies gathered briefly, tired but attentive. They glanced at Harper with new understanding, silently acknowledging the lessons she had imparted through action, guidance, and sheer skill. The ringleader, who had once been the most vocal in mocking her, approached hesitantly, offering a quiet nod of acknowledgement. Harper met his gaze with a small, approving smile, not as a reward, but as recognition of his effort to learn and improve. By the time they left the training grounds, the rookies carried with them more than just physical skills. They had learned lessons in respect, humility, and the nature of true leadership. Harper had proven herself not just by rank or by her tattoo, but through her actions, her guidance, and her ability to inspire others to reach their full potential. They understood, fully and clearly, that she was a leader worth following, someone whose example would shape their approach to training, teamwork, and life on the base for the days to come. By the end of the week, the rookies had changed completely. What had started as casual teasing and jokes about Lieutenant Harper's presence had transformed into a deep, genuine respect that ran far beyond her rank or her uniform. The young men who had once laughed at her, expecting her to stumble under the weight of their mockery, now observed her carefully, absorbed her every instruction, and followed her guidance without hesitation. Harper's calm authority, her precision, and her skill had left a mark that went far deeper than any exercise could teach. The transformation was not immediate, but it was undeniable. At first, the rookies had only respected Harper because of her tattoo, a small yet powerful symbol of her connection to the commander and her elite SEAL experience. That revelation had stopped their mocking in its tracks, but it had only begun the process of earning their true respect. Over the week, Harper had demonstrated that her authority was not just symbolic. It was earned through competence, composure, and leadership in action. Training exercises had tested the rookies in ways they had never experienced before. Harper guided them through grueling physical drills, complex tactical maneuvers, and high-pressure scenarios that required teamwork, strategy, and mental sharpness. Each time a rookie faltered, Harper was there. Not to scold, but to teach, demonstrate, and guide. Her patience was endless, her corrections precise, and her encouragement subtle but effective. The rookies realized that she wasn't just an officer. They were learning from someone whose expertise was undeniable, someone whose actions could teach lessons far beyond the classroom or training grounds. What made Harper stand out the most was not only her skill but her quiet confidence. She never needed to shout, demand, or assert dominance. Her presence alone set the tone, and her actions spoke louder than any words could. The rookies began to understand that leadership was not about commanding fear or compliance. It was about inspiring respect through competence, guidance, and calm authority. Harper's influence grew stronger with every exercise, every correction, and every demonstration. By midweek, the rookies who had been the most vocal in their teasing were the ones who now listened the most attentively. They watched Harper closely, learning not only how to perform tasks correctly but also how to approach challenges with composure and confidence. They began to imitate her steadiness, her calm decision-making, and her precise execution of every movement. In doing so, they realized the true value of leadership. It wasn't simply about telling people what to do. It was about showing them how to succeed, helping them build their skills, and encouraging them to reach higher than they thought possible. Harper also paid attention to teamwork, observing how the rookies interacted with each other. She corrected not just technical mistakes but behavioral ones, guiding them to communicate clearly, support one another, and act as a cohesive unit. The rookies began to see that Harper's lessons extended far beyond the physical exercises. They were learning about trust, accountability, and the importance of unity in high-stakes situations. Every correction, every suggestion, every small demonstration became a powerful teaching moment that they would carry with them long after the drills ended. The ringleader, once the boldest and most mocking of the group, became one of Harper's most attentive students. His initial arrogance had been replaced by determination and humility. He had learned a valuable lesson. Appearances could be deceiving, and true authority was not about age, size, or bravado. It was about skill, experience, and the quiet strength to lead without seeking recognition. Even when Harper wasn't directly observing him, he applied her teachings, correcting his own mistakes and helping his fellow rookies improve. By the end of the week, the rookies were transformed. The lessons Harper had imparted went far beyond physical skill or tactical knowledge. They had learned respect, humility, and the true meaning of leadership. They understood that Harper's presence had been a test in itself, a test of their ability to recognize authority, follow guidance, and grow under the leadership of someone exceptional. Every glance at her tattoo, every remembered correction, and every practiced maneuver reinforced the reality that she was not only a capable officer, but also a leader who inspired real change. The rookies reflected quietly on their journey. The jokes they had made on the first day now felt naive, almost foolish. They realized that underestimating someone based on appearances or assumptions could have serious consequences. Harper had not only corrected their technical mistakes but also reshaped their mindset, teaching them lessons in maturity, respect, and self-awareness. They had seen firsthand that true leadership could not be faked, and that skill, confidence, and composure were the most powerful tools a leader could possess. Harper herself remained calm, never boasting or drawing attention to her accomplishments. She had simply performed her duties with excellence, guiding the rookies with skill, patience, and quiet authority. And in doing so, she had left an indelible mark. By the final training session, the rookies looked at her not as an outsider, not as someone to be tested, but as a trusted leader whose presence elevated everyone around her. As the week concluded, Harper walked through the training grounds one last time, observing the rookies with satisfaction. They moved more confidently, worked together more seamlessly, and approached each challenge with focus and determination. The lessons they had learned from her went beyond drills. They were lessons that would stay with them for their entire careers. Respect had been earned, trust had been built, and leadership had been demonstrated in the most powerful way possible, through example. The rookies left the base that week changed. They had learned the hard, quiet lesson that true authority is shown through action, not words, and that respect is earned through competence, patience, and integrity. Lieutenant Harper had not only guided them through difficult training but had also taught them one of the most important lessons of their careers. Never underestimate someone, always observe carefully, and understand that leadership is as much about inspiration and example as it is about rank or status. By the time they looked back on that week, the memory of Harper would stay with them, not as a mere officer, but as a living example of what it meant to be exceptional, respected, and truly worthy of following. The joke they had tried to make on the first day was long gone, replaced by admiration, understanding, and a lesson they would carry forever.